Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things ever, Studio Ghibli! I've been wanting to make a tier list for a while now. First of all, I'm just going to list the Studio Ghibli movies I have never seen. That would be Ocean Waves, My Neighbor the Yamadas, The Tale of Princess Kaguya, and Earwig and the Witch. I've also never seen the Turtle movie, but do y'all even know what I'm talking about? Again, we're gonna rate this through A, B, C, D, and F tiers. Though, spoiler warning, none of the movies made it to the F tier, so... And if I had to label each tier with a name, it would be from Legendary, Amazing Watch, Pretty Good, Nah Fam, and Unwatchable, which... Once again, none of the movies made it to this category, so the things I kept in mind when ranking these movies were, do I like it? Is it boring? Some Studio Ghibli movies are long, but that doesn't mean they're not entertaining. Does it give me the fee-fees? If it's comedy, does it make me laugh? If it's intense, does it make me feel anxious? If it's heartwarming, if it's wholesome, do I feel cozy? And is the story cohesive? Is the story interesting? And then the fourth thing was, what is its value past the first consumption? Is this a movie that I would watch repeatedly? Or is this a movie that it's like, oh, one and done, I don't need to watch it again? So with that being said, I want to give one tiny disclaimer. I have been watching Studio Ghibli since I was in high school. I am now 24 years old. That means I have seen some of these movies way too many times. If I had ranked these movies, say when I was in high school, I would have ranked some of these differently. But some of them, their magic has kind of just worn off for me. And I feel like if a movie deserves to be in the A or S rank, then this wearing off quality doesn't really happen. Also, disclaimer, some of y'all gonna be mad. Just want to say that up front. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and start chronologically with Nausicaaa of the Valley of the Wind. This movie was released in 1984, and it was Studio Ghibli's first movie, directed by Hayao Miyazaki, which is now pretty much synonymous with Studio Ghibli. I ranked this movie at a B tier. I know this is going to make some people mad. Don't get me wrong. Great movie. Amazing movie. The thing about all of these movies, if I was ranking them by comparison to other movies alone, all of these would have made it to A to S tier. But because I'm comparing them all within themselves, I put it in the B tier. I love Nausicaaa of the Valley of the Wind. I think the message is great. Hayao Miyazaki's reoccurring themes are always about respecting nature and anti-war. And these themes really shine in Nausicaaa. The character herself is well written. I have a whole video about how Miyazaki writes female characters. And Nausicaaa is a great example of a female character done right. The art is amazing, as always. That can be said for every movie. I just find it a little slow. And I would only recommend it to a certain kind of person. I don't think it's for everybody. But overall, I like it. By comparison to all Studio Ghibli movies, I put it in the B tier. I think it's pretty good. Next, we have Castle in the Sky, which was released in 1986. Castle in the Sky was my personal favorite in high school and stayed my favorite for a long time. So I've watched it a lot. And because of this, once again, it is going in the B tier. I think overall it's a well-written movie, well-constructed, some amazing, memorable characters. I do think the female lead in this one is a little weak, but she's still likable. But in place of that, we have one of my favorite female characters of all time in Studio Ghibli. It's got some funny parts, it has some earnest parts, has an interesting story. Overall, pretty good. B tier. Next we have Grave of the Fireflies, which was released in 1988. Grave of the Fireflies is not like either of the previous movies. Grave of the Fireflies is one of Studio Ghibli's most mature movies, I would say. Its theme alone is just very heavy. Here's a brief synopsis. It is about a boy and his little sister and their survival after they lose their family to one of the bombings during World War II. And it shows the plight that historically a lot of young Japanese children went through once losing their family, about being juggled between different family members, being homeless, facing poverty. It's really hard to get through. Unfortunately, it was one of the realistic outcomes that happened with many Japanese children during the war. While it is hard to watch, it is very memorable and I think an important story, and I think it is well constructed and well handled, so I think it's considered an S tier movie. Those who are not even fans of anime, I think this movie could be appealing to, even to just like history buffs. It's just overall a earnest, important tale, I think. Next, we have one of Ghibli's most wholesome ones, My Neighbor Totoro, which was also released in 1988. And this was based off of a kid's book idea that Miyazaki had, and he turned it into a film. Very much made for children. I saw it as a teenager, so I kind of felt like I missed out on being part of the demographic of this movie. I know this is a classic for a lot of people. When people think Studio Ghibli, a lot of them think of Totoro. And art-wise, animation-wise, I think it's amazing. Story-wise, I think it's boring. I know it's a lot of people's favorites, and I can understand that. This tier list is based on my tastes, so I put it in the B tier of just like, eh. I think a lot of people have nostalgia for it, and there is a wholesomeness. There is a capturing of the childhood experience that you can appreciate even as an adult viewer. But with all the other choices in Ghibli movies, I would just prefer to watch something else. Next, we have Kiki's Delivery Service, which was made in 1989. And I rank this movie at... See, I'm gonna be honest with you, I really struggle with where to put this one. I originally put it in B. Because I've seen it so many times, but I will say there has been a metamorphosis of sorts with me in this movie. This movie means something different to me after COVID. Just from a personal journey of mine where I was trying to enter into a career and then got disillusioned by it. Kiki goes through a similar thing within the movie, and I don't know, it has a different meaning to me now. It's not boring by any means. I just don't know. I think it's gonna stay in the B tier, but if you really want to consider it, it's like A/B for me. A B minus? No. An A-B+ kind of movie. I think watching it as a kid is a way different experience than watching it as an adult. Something that Kiki goes through, the way it, depicts depression, disillusionment with something that you love, I think are experiences that a lot of adults go through. So I think it's an interesting thing that isn't tackled in a lot of media. So it's unique in that regard. But yeah, I'm going to keep it in the B tier for now. Next we have Only Yesterday, released in 1991. This movie was dubbed a little bit later, I believe, because it stars Daisy Ridley, the girl who played Rey in the new Star Wars movies, and it was dubbed around that time by Disney. If it was dubbed prior to that, I wasn't exposed to it, but that means that I got to enjoy it past my rewatching of a bunch of Ghibli movies. So my consumption of this is biased. I haven't watched it as long as I've watched others, so that definitely contributes to where I placed it in the ranking system, I think. But it's a movie I always love to rewatch. Like, no matter how many times I watch it, I still think it's funny. And there aren't a lot of experiences that I relate to growing up as a female assigned at birth that are depicted in movies. And there's something about the way adolescence, specifically for a girl, is depicted in this movie that I can relate to on some levels. And not only that, but just the main character as an adult. I love how introspective she is. I love the humility that she takes on when she's being retrospective. And I don't know, there's just something, like, I love stories where you're just dropped into a person's life for a little bit and there's no real beginning or ending, and it's just kind of like one of those stories. And I kind of like how mundane it is. Not for everybody, plenty of people will find it boring, but if you like coming of age stories, if you like just everyday stories, it's a movie for you. I personally ranked it in the A tier because it's one of my favorites. Next we have Porco Rosso, which was released in 1992. Porco Rosso has continued to be one of my favorite movies of all time since I was like a junior or senior in high school. It will never cease to be one of my favorite movies because no matter what mood I'm in, if I'm bored, sad, happy, whatever, I'm always down to watch Porco Rosso. It's one of Studio Ghibli's shortest movies, and I think that does contribute to it. The pacing, I think, is a bit better. Though, I have seen an interview where Miyazaki admits that he does not like Porco Rosso. But I love it. I love the characters. I love the story. I don't know what it is about it that I could totally get immersed in it every time. So, once again, based on my own personal tastes, I put it in the A tier. Because it's withstood the test of time and rewatching for me that much. Next we have Poko, which was released in 1994. Oh, Poko. This is usually a movie I don't recommend to people. I think there is an audience for it, for people who are kind of into, like, unique anime. Be ready for some interesting story choices. If you're not familiar with the lore of Tanuki, let me just say, they stay very faithful to it. Poko. Not a bad movie. Has a very interesting scene that it's famous for. The animation is gorgeous. But overall, this is probably one of my least favorite Ghibli movies. I don't tend to rewatch this one. I think I've seen it a majority of 2 times. I find it kind of boring. I think there are other movies that Ghibli has to offer that tackles its themes much better. But if you're looking for a unique watch, Poko for sure. Based on my own personal taste, I put it in a C tier. Because it's just for me. Next we have Whispers of the Heart, which was released in 1995. This was the very first movie I ever watched. I had a friend in high school who introduced me to Studio Ghibli. This was her favorite movie, so this was the first one I was exposed to, and I loved it for a long time. There's something unique about the way Studio Ghibli tackles coming-of-age stories, and this is definitely one of them. If you like ordinary stories, this is a good one. It kind of, to me, feels related to Kiki a lot in that it tackles something that a lot of adults experience through a child's lens. The main character is trying to find what she's passionate about, and she's not really sure what that looks like. And I think it's a very honest look into that journey for a lot of people, where you really just don't know what you're passionate about, and you're trying to navigate that and figure that out and what that might mean for the rest of your life. I put this movie in the B tier. Not amazing, but pretty good. Then we have Princess Mononoke, which was released in 1997, the year I was born. This is another one of Miyazaki's mature movies. It has some pretty graphic violence in it, but that violence is used as a tool to talk about important issues. Once again, the themes are respecting nature and humans' relationship with nature and how war ties into all of that. And I think these themes are tackled expertly in this movie. Once again, it's not for everybody. If you're not really into the violence and you're really looking more for cozy, wholesome Studio Ghibli, this is not really a movie for you. But if you like more of the raw realness that Miyazaki offers, 100% for you. I personally think the message is important enough to put it in an S tier. That's just me. Then we have Spirited Away, which was released in 2001. This is one of the most famous Studio Ghibli movies to date, for sure. Definitely has influenced, like, so many animated movies you've seen, specifically through Pixar. It seems that Pixar animators really like Ghibli and specifically Spirited Away. I think this movie is extremely unique, and I think it's worth being one of their most famous films. I think the characters it provides, the story that it provides is all really unique. I've never really found anything like it before. I think there's a lot to take away from this movie in regards to dedication, in regards to caring about those in your life that are important to you. So, humans' relationship with work and what that looks like. So I personally put this in the A tier. 2002, we have The Cat Returns, which is kind of a sequel to Whispers of the Heart, but not really. It stars a character that the main character in Whispers of the Heart wrote about. I will be honest with you, I have only seen this movie one time, but it's not because I disliked it, I've just never had a reason to return to it. But I do remember when I watched it that I was like, oh wow, this is actually like surprisingly good. I did not expect it to be this good. I really should rewatch it because I remember it was just a really fun movie. So because it left such an impression on me upon one watch, I put it in the B tier. Because I figure if it was worth the A or S tier, I probably would have rewatched it. In 2004, we have Howl's Moving Castle. I'm sorry to report that I ranked this movie as a B tier movie. I know. Come for me, Howl stands. Hear me out. I love this movie. It's a good movie. It really is. I love Sophie. I love Calcifer. I love the art and the animation. I related to Sophie a lot when I was younger. And I really like how Sophie handled being an elderly person, and like I totally strive for that attitude as an older person. However, I just personally feel like it's like overrated, but like don't tell the fangirls, okay, or else they're gonna come for me. Next we have the very first movie to make it to the D tier. You want to guess what it is? I'll give you 1, 2, 3 seconds. It's Tales at Earthsea. Released in 2006. I think this is universally not people's favorite movie by Ghibli. Was this Goro's first movie? That's shitty. But that kind of makes sense. So this was the very first movie directed by Goro Miyazaki, which is Hayao Miyazaki's son. Goro Miyazaki did not want to get into animation, but was pressured to do so, and did so out of obligation. That doesn't mean he doesn't make good movies. One of the movies that he directed made it to a higher tier on my list. However, this is not a good movie. I'm sorry. Those who like it, I will not be taking any questions or comments. This movie is boring. It does not have good characters. The only memorable character, aside from the old guy, I don't even remember his name, is fucking Cobb. Cobb scared the fuck out of me as a teenager. But, like, that's all I remember from it. And yes, I have rewatched it. So I should remember something. But yeah, overall, weak main characters, weak story, animation's fine. There are better movies to watch. Next, we have Ponyo, which was released in 2008. Before I rank it, I want to say this. Ponyo is, in my opinion, one of the most beautifully animated movies by Studio Ghibli. The stylization is gorgeous. The colors are bright. The characters and their character designs are memorable. I love to watch this movie. And I think I would like it just as much as if it was mute. Because the story, in my opinion, is boring. This was another one written for children. It's Hayao Miyazaki's take on The Little Mermaid. I don't even know if I would have liked this movie as a kid. And same with Totoro, but I don't know. Maybe I would have. But as an adult, I find it a little boring. I put Ponyo in the C tier. Just personally. I don't think the story holds up at all. And for me, its only saving factor is its amazing, gorgeous, beautiful animation. Next, we have Secret World of Arrietty, released in 2010, and this is in the D tier. Because fuck this movie. This movie is so boring to me, and the animation is... I mean, with all Studio Ghibli movies, all of their animation and art is gorgeous, so, like, it's kind of a standard, right? And to me, it just doesn't... It doesn't save the movie. I've seen this movie a few times, even, and just, like... I will say the one thing that surprises me about this movie is Amy Poehler's performance. She is an amazing anime actress. Just, like, out of nowhere. She does amazing. She just fits right into the genre. If I didn't know it was Amy Poehler, I would have just thought it was a well-versed anime voice actress. She does a great job. Other than that, it has really weird moments, and I would not like to relive them. Next we have From Up on Poppy Hill, released in 2011, and I know this movie is not well beloved by the fans, but I love this movie. I feel like it is Goro Miyazaki's own Whispers of the Heart. This was Goro Miyazaki's second movie, and I think he did much better with this one. I love this movie. I have watched it multiple times, and it still holds up for me. I think the time period is very interesting. There's really great comedy in this movie. I think Goro handles comedy extremely well, which is difficult, I think, for some Japanese movies. Japanese humor can be very different from Western humor, and somehow it holds up even in the dub, and that's something I can appreciate. So, for me, this is in the A tier. Next we have Wind Rises, which was released in 2013. Wind Rises is a beautiful movie. It has a controversial story, but if you know something about Miyazaki, it's that he loves things that fly. He loves planes that fly, he loves fantasy things that fly, and he loves pigs that fly. Anything that flies, he loves it. Wind Rises is the story of the person who made the planes that were used during World War II for Japan. And it's controversial because it's depicting a person who created something for war, which is understandable. But I think for Miyazaki, somebody who is extremely anti-war, it was more about somebody who got swept up into something political where their passion was weaponized. The movie depicts him more just his passion is about planes, and his country ends up using that against him. That's kind of the approach that Miyazaki takes with the movie. I don't know how accurate it is to history, but if you watch it knowing that it's not really, I think, trying to be historically accurate, and you're more just watching a person's story based on a real person, I think it's an enjoyable watch. Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays the main character, and he does a great job. A great job. I think it belongs in the B tier. I think it's pretty good for what it's worth. Next, we have Marnie Was There, which was released in 2014. This movie is weird. This movie, I don't know what they were thinking, because I'm telling you, if you watch it, it has such a gay vibe to it. And spoiler alert, spoilers now, the gayness happens between a granddaughter and the grandmother. The granddaughter and the grandmother. I'm totally down to see Ghibli tackle some LGBT characters. That would be really cool. But, like, can they not be related next time? This movie does not hold up at all. I don't remember hardly a single thing from it. The characters are boring. The story is boring. I can't even remember hardly any of the art that's in it. I'm sure it's gorgeous because, you know, it's Studio Ghibli. But, like, totally forgettable. D tier. D tier movie. Like, the definition of a D tier movie. And there we have it. That is the end of my Ghibli tier list. I will make a note here. I ended up moving some of the movies around to reflect my taste after I made the tier list. So here's the updated tier list. I know that people are not going to agree with me. I know I have unpopular opinions. Everyone's going to be like, Howls should be in the A tier. Kiki should be in the S tier. NAUSICAA should be S tier. And, like, you know what? I'm sure you have valid arguments for why that's a thing. But this list reflects my tastes. Not the internet's tastes. My tastes. And these are my tastes. Like, something I had to consider when making this list is, like, okay, you know, I put From Up on Poppy Hill in the A tier. So does that mean I would prefer to watch it over Kiki's Delivery Service? And the answer is yes, I would. Okay, you know, I put Nausicaaa of the Valley of the Wind in the B tier. Would I prefer to watch it over Poko? 100%. Would I prefer to watch Poko over ARIETTY? Yeah. Yes, I would. It's much more interesting. So that's kind of what I had to consider when making it. At the very least, can we agree that Grave of the Fireflies and Princess Mononoke are S tier? Is that something we can at least agree on? That would be nice. Thank you for listening to me ramble about my favorite movies. Let me know your tier list down in the comments, please. Just keep them amicable. I'm a very sensitive person, and I do have feelings. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Sorry you had to watch my taped up glasses for this whole video. I promise I have new glasses coming in. They just got broke. It did. Okay? That's all from me. And as always, thank you for watching.